Hi there, this is Chris with EVH Technique, and this is video number 2 in a 3-video series for endoscopic radial artery harvesting using the Terumo Virtuosaph Plus. Now, if you haven't seen the first video in this series that covers the open dissection, you can feel free to refer back to that. This video is going to pick up with the scope dissection after we've completed that first step. So, as always, you can check out our website for more information at evhtechnique.com, but let's get into it. At this point, we've completed our circumferential dissection around the pedicle down at the wrist. I'm using the Terumo Virtuosaph Plus harvesting device here. And the number one thing when you're starting a radial is this right here, this connective tissue, this fascia. There's kind of a sandwich of fascia anteriorly and posteriorly around the radial. So this is my radial here. And there's going to be a venae comitatus on one side and on the other. So we need to find that fascia. So that's what the bulk of the dissection is all about. So you can see that fascia anteriorly. I'm going to check posteriorly as well to see if that kind of releases a little bit easier. So here's our radial right here. And then that fascia is going to be right there. So I'm going to try to get my scope right in that direction right there. And it doesn't matter with a radial if you go the anterior pass first or the posterior pass first. There's enough connective tissue on either side to keep it suspended. So it won't drop down into your tunnel if you go posterior first. Once you've completed the posterior pass, then you will switch to anterior. And on this video, I struggle a little bit, so this is actually a good example of trying to find that right plane. So there was a little connective tissue there. This is better here. So I've got all this connective tissue. Here's my radial under here. And I want to stay underneath that, but what's happening is I'm kind of popping up through the fascia right there. So I struggle a little bit, and you're welcome. I'm trying to be transparent and honest with you. So I keep trying to find that plane, and I don't want to get too close to the radial, so I'm kind of being gentle. There, the tip was just a little too close, so I backed off. So eventually we'll break through. There we go. Now this is a nice view of the radial artery here and the venae comitatus here, another one here. Now you want to take all of this as a pedicled graft. You don't want to separate these veins from the radial itself. A couple of reasons. One is they can provide a protective effect to vasospasm, and also there's a lot of really small branches that are kind of tied in there, and we want to find those when we prep, but we don't want to avulse them off or else it's a nightmare. So all right, back to the harvest. So once you get in that plane, the radial is actually very easy to harvest. Most of our branches are going to be laterally, so we're not going to, a couple are anterior, especially in the distal third of the arm down by the wrist. You've got a couple that can be anteriorly, but once you get up into the higher portion of the arm, it's not quite as difficult. Now this is key here. When we get up to the antecubital space, we start to have these veins that are kind of all over the place. On the other side would have a bunch of really big veins. That's when you know that you're going to be at the distal end of your tunnel. So you can carefully dissect this out, but I can't tell you the number of times that I've tried to get just a little bit more length on the radial by trying to divide these during the harvest phase, and I've created a lot of problems for myself. So stay away from that. But I do want to make sure that I am in fact at the antecubital space. You can transilluminate through your arm to make sure that you're at your distal mark. So on the way back, I'm going to pop a couple windows through that connective tissue. You don't have to get into the 3 o'clock or 9 o'clock position of your screen and slide up the graft. You just have to pop some windows. And then down at the wrist, you want to make sure you've got most of it dissected out. That'll just make your division easier. So there we go, and that side's pretty well dissected, so we're probably ready to move on to switch to the harvester. I always take a little extra time here at the end of my tunnel to make sure I'm circumferentially dissected around the conduit. For both Mackay users and Terumo users, it's important to have a landing zone, so to speak, for the cradle for Mackay or the keeper for the Virtuosaph to get on top of or around the vessel itself when you start the harvesting portion. So that's all for part 2 of this video series. Please check out part 3, which is the endoscopic harvesting and removal of the radial artery. And also check out our website at evhtechnique.com for more tips and tricks, downloadable resources, and more information about vessel harvesting. So thanks so much for watching. We'll catch you on the next one.